Why are there so many shows starring Muppets and dozens of movies too? They said they'd watch everyone and they mean it. It's something that they've got to do. So now they've pledged you a lifelong commitment. The Muppets, Matthew and Sam.
Welcome to Commitment, the podcast where two friends have vowed to watch all things Muppets. I'm Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And this week, we are here to discuss the ninth and possibly, in my opinion, the best episode of the Jim Henson Hour.
Okay.
From July 30th, 1989. That episode is known as Garbage, ironically. And once again, we are not alone. In our last episode, we were joined by ToughPigs.com co-owner Joe Hennis, and today we are joined by another ToughPigs.com co-owner, making his first appearance on Commitment. He is also the head writer at ToughPigs.com, as well as one of the hosts of the Tough Pigs podcast, Moving Right Along. That's right, our guest today is none other than the fantastic Ryan Rowe.
Hello, I don't know if I've ever been introduced as fantastic before. Thank you.
Matt's good at writing a flattering intro. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks.
I mean, the alternative is to write a boring or unflattering intro.
Well, you just have a certain sparkle for it, Matt. Take the compliment. Someday you'll intro me at my funeral. I hope. And you'll say something nice about me for once in your life.
He was fantastic.
Yeah. If only I told him that when he was still alive.
As I said, you're one of the co-owners of ToughPigs.com as well as the head writer. I feel like your name has definitely come up on this podcast before because we've had Joe on, we had Danny Horn on, and we've heard sort of the ToughPigs.com story from various sides, but obviously we'd love to hear some of it from your side. So I'm curious sort of how your Muppet fandom started as a child and then sort of how that progressed and landed you where you are today with Tough Pigs.
It's probably pretty similar to a lot of people, and especially people like Joe and Danny. I've been a Muppet fan as long as I can remember. I grew up watching Sesame Street like a lot of people. And I just always loved anything with Muppets in it. Speaking of moms, my parents were great at making sure that if there was a Muppet video at our video store, they were going to rent it for me. If there was a Muppet thing on TV, they were going to tape it for me or make sure that I was watching TV so I could see it. Like I even have a memory or two of them waking me up after my bedtime because something Muppety was on TV. Like, oh, come and look, it's the Muppets. So yeah, just that, and that kind of stuck with me. Like maybe there was a period where I thought I was too cool for the Muppets for a few years, but otherwise it kind of stuck with me for my entire life. The sort of formative thing was when I was about 13 and read the book Jim Henson, The Works by Christopher Finch, which is that big coffee table book. That's what kind of, I went from being a Muppet fan to being a real Muppet nerd because that has all the names of the performers, and you learn about writers and how they perform Muppets and how they build Muppets. So from there was no looking back, and I discovered that there were other people like me originally on like the Prodigy and America Online services had Muppet fan spaces, and the Usenet news groups had a Muppet news group, and that's where I met people like Danny and some people I'm still friends with today. Yeah, and then it just kind of went from there. I discovered the Muppet Central website and forum in the early aughts, and then that led to Danny creating the Tough Pigs website. Yeah, and so on from there. And then eventually, when Danny co-founded Muppet Wiki and shifted his attention there, Joe and I took over the Tough Pigs website, and I guess that's a good place to say the rest is history.
And you were with Tough Pigs from the very start.
Very soon after Danny started the website and the forum. I don't know exactly when I found out about it. I was also a subscriber to Muppet Zine, Danny's Muppet fan zine in the 90s. Yeah, I guess I just found out about the Tough Pigs website from Muppet Central when when people were still posting in both places. Yeah, so pretty soon after he started Tough Pigs, I was there and posting on the forums.
That's so sweet about your parents waking you up to watch Muppets.
Yeah,
stuff.
the one I specifically remember, maybe you've probably seen this in your journey. I think it's the Television Hall of Fame, where all the Muppets sing a song called Jim Is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Jim is
That's
whatever you
one.
want him to be. That's the one specifically I remember. I was in bed. My parents came into my room, got me out of bed. It's the Muppets and Jim Henson on TV. You got to see this.
That's the only way you could see it back then. Unless
exactly.
They had a tape ready to go. That's really
there was
cute.
no expectation that it would be on YouTube someday.
Have you guys ever seen the movie Pet Sematary?
Yes.
I never have.
Do you know how it ends? Do you remember how it ends, Matt?
I haven't watched it since high school, so no.
So this man, there's an evil cemetery. You can bury stuff that dies. It comes back to life, but it comes back different. Evil. It's a Stephen King story. So this man, spoiler alert for a really old movie, his wife dies in the course of the events of this film. At this point, he's completely lost his mind. He's buried his child and several pets. He's sitting in his kitchen playing solitaire or something, waiting for her to come back to life. And she walks in the room and like her eyeballs hanging out of her head and there's like pus shooting out of it. And she's like, darling. And then they hug. And then behind him, she takes out a big knife and then it cuts to black before she stabs him. My mom walked in the morning, 7:30 in the morning probably, and she was like, you got to see this. And she turned the TV on and it was the last few moments of Pet Sematary at 7:30 in the morning. I was probably like 14 or 15, so it was
okay.
But
very different. A very different experience.
Yeah, she did play that and I was like, what is
the
wrong?
Muppets singing
What is
about
wrong
Jim
with
Henson?
you? Now I have to go to school.
Yeah.
You're like, y'all seen Pet Sematary? They're like, no, my parents won't let me watch that.
Right.
My mom forced me to. I also remember them renting The Fly when I was maybe 5.
Yikes.
There are a lot of things I watched as a kid that, it's like a 50-50. It's probably more, not quite as even. But like part of me is like, man, I watched so many, age inappropriate things as a kid. And I think I turned out just fine. So like when I show my kid and when, like, who knows what she'll be watching. And then I'm like, but maybe I shouldn't have seen Reservoir Dogs at such a young age.
Well,
Yeah.
gives you some insight into the world. It lets you know how the world really is, Matt. You gotta be really careful of your ears.
Yeah, that's what Reservoir Dogs is all about.
Yeah.
Watch your ears, kids.
Yeah.
No, but I think that it goes back to something you were saying, Ryan, about there's sort of like this phase in life where you have, the too cool for something mentality, which is, usually peer pressured out of you.
Yeah, I feel like that was kind of late elementary school for me. And it was kids are no longer watching Muppet Babies or
Right.
Yeah.
Sesame Street is long behind us. So,
Yeah.
but then I realized, like, wait a minute, no, I do like the Muppets. I still find the Muppets entertaining, so I shouldn't deprive myself of them just because I want to seem cool to my peers.
There's part of that's like an important phase to go through because you do have that realization later. But sometimes I like wish I could go back to that version of myself and just be like, you just got to find your people and talk openly and honestly about the things you like. Because I know I benefited a lot from, I had a best friend, Kyle, in high school, who was this like unabashed like nerd and also just like loved playing like Little Mermaid songs and like study hall, just like from his iPod. He's like the first person to have an iPod in school, so he was so cool. Oh, wow. But then it was like I was like, oh, you're allowed to do this. Like you're allowed to like be into kids things as you get older and like not be embarrassed about it.
Yeah, and it is great when you find other people who have those same interests.
Mm.
It's a good lesson to learn about, being yourself.
Well, thinking of lessons learned over time, this is my segue towards your podcast, moving right along, which is a podcast where you and your co-host Anthony Strand are watching Muppet movies 2 minutes at a time, which, that's on the surface already sounds like a lot of Muppets to watch.
Yes.
But also the one of, not the way movies are intended to be watched.
No, I guess that's right.
So far, you guys have done over 300 episodes, and you've watched Muppet Movie, Great Muppet Caper, Muppets Take Manhattan, Muppet Family Christmas, Muppet Christmas Carol, Muppet Treasure Island, and you're currently working your way through Muppets from Space, as well as like a handful of other specials and things. one, I'm so curious, like, which of those has been the hardest to watch at this pace? And are you still able to go back and watch those movies at a normal pace and appreciate them, or is your brain broken now?
Those are all good questions. I should say that the idea came from what I think was the first ever podcast to do this format, which is Star Wars Minute.
Mm-hmm.
These two guys, Alex Robinson and Pete the Retailer, watch Star Wars movies 1 minute at a time.
And you were like, "Ugh, that sounds bad. Let's just do 2 movies."
Well, pretty much. Yeah, they're stretching that out even further. And basically, Anthony and I both had the same idea at the same time that we should be doing this with Muppet movies. So we had the idea, and then it took us a few years to actually start recording.
That'll happen, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's been fun, and I've learned a lot about every single one of these movies that I never knew before, and just it's so rewarding to notice little things in the background and little puppetry tricks that we had never noticed. The hardest one to get through for me is the one that we're doing right now, Muppets from Space, which is my least favorite Muppet movie. Usually when we are doing this podcast, there comes a point a little over halfway through the season where I'm kind of like, okay, how much time do we have? You know, I'm always having fun when we're recording,
right?
When the episodes are coming out and people are responding to them. But there does come a point when it's like, how many of these do we have left? With Muppets from Space, that came much sooner than usual, because I think there's a point in that movie where it really just drops off. But, you know, it's always, Anthony has said that even if nobody listened to the podcast, he would want to keep recording it anyway, because we're just having fun talking with our Muppet nerd friends on a regular basis. So that's kind of what's fun about it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what more podcasters need to realize too, is that that's the most important part of it. Is you need to like your co-host and like ideally know them beforehand, and you have a mutual interest of some sort, and just have a fun conversation, and people will hopefully care about it. But it needs to be a good conversation for you first.
I think Anthony and I complement each other really well as co-host. That's compliment.
You always got to have a Bert and an Ernie on a podcast.
Yeah, and I guess I'm the Bert and he's the Ernie in this dynamic. So yeah, I think it works.
Matt said that, and I agree with him, that movies weren't meant to be watched 2 minutes at a time. But I do think like Jim Henson puppet-based films probably are uniquely positioned to be super rewarding to watch like that, just because like every single moment is so fabricated that there is something to get out of all of it.
Yeah, we can talk for so long about, oh, look at this fun costume that they made for this character, or how do you think they made Rizzo's food in the Muppet Christmas Carol, or just in all of these puppetry tricks too that some of them we've learned how they did it, some of them we still don't know how they did it.
Which is the thing that we often forget to even think about on this podcast. Like, we'll get to the end of the episode and we're like, yeah, we liked it, we didn't like it, whatever. And we're like, oh, right, they're puppets the whole time.
Yeah,
and like sometimes
Fozzie
you just forget.
Was really phoning it in this time, but then it's like, oh yeah, that's not a real guy.
But yeah, just the craftsmanship that goes into it. And yeah, I still, every single one of them, I still have been happy to go back and watch it all the way through the usual way after we finish the season. So
Is there a lot of seeing the tops of guys' heads in some of this stuff, or does that not happen that often?
I don't think it happens much in the movies, actually.
Muppet Christmas Carol, I just learned that like in the very last shot of the movie, you can see the top of a woman's head.
Oh, well, there are a ton of puppeteers in that last sequence. So I can see that happening.
You're going to get ahead every now and then.
I just love that they they'll erase cigarettes, they'll erase arm rods, they'll replace songs. And it's like, but should we replace this blonde ponytail? And it's like,
just stick a couple of googly eyes on it. It's a Muppet.
That's a Muppet phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get into what we watched this week, I got a couple quick things we need to touch on here. First up, quick update for listeners. In our Monster Maker episode, I had mentioned that I was buying and going to read the book of Monster Maker to see sort of where it differed and where it was better or worse than the Jim Henson Hour episode about it. So there was a bunch of stuff in that episode we theorized would probably make more sense in the book, like the dad being a bank robber, a weird story that Chancey Bellows tells the kid, and some other things. Turns out none of those things are in the book.
He doesn't even mention being in love with his cousin in the book.
He does not.
What the hell?
The dad and the mom are fine. They're not
bank robbers?
Nope.
Oh.
The main plot of the story of a kid getting the creature shop job at his hero's, workplace is the same. But the main conflict in the story is a group of bullies who want to beat this kid up and also want to trash the creature shop. And that's pretty much the whole book. So yeah, very interesting to see what they added for the adaptation, especially when the stuff that they added was kind of wild and different and not explored that deeply.
Does the kid read as younger in the book? Is he supposed to be younger than he is in the show?
No, if anything, he might be like a year or two older because it feels more like teens. Because it's very violent at parts. Like these kids have like a fist fight that's literally like 6 pages long in the description of it. And it's a weird moment because it's probably the thing that the writer spends.
But a book.
A little bit because it is like he's talking at the beginning. He's like, oh man, this isn't the movies. I'm not the hero cowboy. I can't win. This guy's like twice my size. And then he starts to like get like a bloodlust. And he's like, actually, I really like punching this kid in the face.
Wow.
Maybe the cowboy does win in real life. And then some other kid sees that he's winning and knocks him out with a big stick to the back of the head.
What the hell?
And then this is the wildest thing. Like, at the end of the book, there are these moments where the kid sees the puppets coming to life, which is like sort of what we theorized Monster Maker might be. Turns out wasn't.
Wait, in the book, are they really coming to life?
Nope. He just has a concussion.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Yeah. So he's like, but I saw them. I saw this and this. And they're like, yeah, no, that was this light over here. And that was that box over there. And that was this. You're concussed.
Yeah, I guess the point of an adaptation is to pull out the parts that are meaningful to you. And getting hit in the head with a big stick wasn't meaningful to whoever did this adaptation.
Yeah. Monster Maker, we enjoyed it. I think it's definitely one of the better things we've watched as part of the Jim Henson Hour. And I do think, much like Forrest Gump, the movie is much better than the book. But the other thing that I don't want to spend too much time on because I think we could probably do a whole episode about it, but it feels weird to not mention, the trailer for the new Muppet Show is out, guys.
Oh, yeah.
This is the first episode we recorded since that came out. And I gotta say, I am pretty hyped based on the trailer and the teaser that we've seen so far.
Here's the thing. I have actually not yet watched the longer trailer, and I'm kind of wondering, like, what if I just don't? What if I just wait until I can see the whole thing and not spend so much time worrying, is it going to be good? Are people going to like it based on what's in the trailer? Or I have a big problem with reading too many comments on social media, especially when it comes to people talking about Muppets. So
yeah,
I'm kind of thinking, what if I just let go of all that and just stay away from it? But I am very excited about the Muppet Show. I heard Thog they rebuilt again, smaller.
It seems like they got Thog the right size. There's currently some conspiracy theories in our Discord about whether or not Thog is green screened in, and
so
what that
the
means
same
about.
One they just shrunk him down, or what?
Oh, they could do that.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, based on my very brief analysis, the build looks different. Like the center of gravity to his stomach and stuff looks like
he looked a little weird
build.
when he was too big, I think.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. It looks unwieldy.
Yeah.
So I think it's a different puppet. I do think there's maybe some minor CGI in that shot, and whether it's to comp things together or what it is, who knows? It could just be a trailer thing. But my personal favorite excitement was Baskerville is seen. They show Hilda. And
I heard about Hilda. I'm excited to see Hilda back.
I'm excited to see who they have performing some of these characters who we have not heard in forever.
In decades,
so it'll be really interesting. And I think, reading the comments is always usually a bad choice. And I would definitely not read the comments under that trailer if you do happen to watch it beforehand.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I've also seen complaints about Sabrina Carpenter as the guest star and Seth Rogen as a producer. I think those are both great
I think that's
choices
totally
for this
perfect,
project. I
yeah.
think Sabrina Carpenter is like the ideal guest star for a Muppet Show in 2026.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Seth Rogen, if anyone has been watching The Studio, like that's the kind of, cleaner than that, obviously, but that's the kind of comedy I would like to see the Muppets
he's being
doing.
Kermit in The Studio, kind of.
Yeah,
he's
pretty much.
like a gritty real life version of Kermit.
Yeah, like a put upon guy just trying to do the best he can in show business,
Running around like crazy while everybody in his life tries to sabotage him, and he sabotages himself. Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I have no problem with anything so far that I have seen or heard about this special. And the most exciting thing to me, which whether or not you watch the trailer, this is not really a spoiler. I didn't notice any. There's a couple. I didn't really notice like a reliance on CGI or 3D backgrounds or shooting on the volume like they did with Muppets Haunted Mansion.
Right.
Like it feels real. It feels like they're in a theater with real stages and real props and real things, which I think is important because, when we're watching these super compressed old 70, like from the 70s Muppet Show episodes, there's something about like the lack of super crystal clear HD transfers of that no matter how much you clean it up, it feels gritty. It feels real. It feels 70s. And so I was a little worried of like shooting these now with ultra 4K cinema cameras, how this would feel. And I think they are going in the right direction based on what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, that's great. I don't mind them using computer assistants to do things like compositing shots of like crowd scenes of Muppets, or I think it was in Muppets Most Wanted when Gonzo did the running of the bulls, and it was essentially the same bull puppet composited many times in the same shot. That feels to me like something Jim Henson would be doing.
Oh, I mean, there's something in this episode that we're about to talk about.
Yeah,
that I think is exactly that.
Right. He was so interested in using technology alongside the physical Muppets. So I think, that all makes sense. But it is nice to see them on physical sets. Like some of the stuff Sesame Street is doing, you can just tell when they're filming on a green screen, and it just feels like something is lost when that's what they're doing.
Yeah. When we were going through and watching some of these 80s Sesame Street things and seeing the huge elaborate sets they build for a small minute-long musical number, I'm like, oh, that feels good. Like that's a good like huge set you built to talk about, putting mail in a mailbox for 30 seconds.
They'd be on a street and you'd be like, but you have a full set that's already a street. Why did you build a whole other set that's a street? I don't know. God bless you though.
Because they could, and there's depth to it and there's texture to it.
It is interesting to open with a very clearly CGI altered Kermit hand having to flip a switch.
I didn't notice that at all.
Yeah, again, when you go frame by frame on these things, Sam, these are the things that annoy you.
Yeah. I just watched it like a normal human being.
I'm doing the Muppet trailer 2 seconds at a time. That's my new podcast.
You're in the wrong fandom if you're watching things like a normal human being.
Maybe I had some much needed perspective.
You're like, it was fine. I saw no problems at all. And I'm like, well, there's this frame, though, where his hand looks like it's glued open. And it's kind of weird. I think it's a matter of they had to get the puppet rod out of there and also make Kermit's hand look like it could push a lever. And there's there's a little bit of, just a tiny bit of CGI with that has to happen. I noticed this in the Muppets Mayhem trailer. There was a moment where Janice is like turning up an amp and like, her finger as a piece of fabric couldn't actually turn a knob. And so you can just see there's like a little something happening there computer wise to make it look right.
Okay.
I don't know what it was. I think maybe it was like a CGI knob. They just like rotate the knob in post. No one should, honestly. But for some reason I did. But, I will continue to pour over this trailer.
Yeah, you're paying attention.
Yeah, just wait till the full episode comes out. It's going to take me 8 weeks to get through that.
Yeah.
But Sam, we should probably get to, the meat of what we're here to discuss today. So what did we watch this week?
We watched the Jim Henson Hour episode Garbage. Original air date July 30th, 1989. A misunderstanding causes Digit to eject a bunch of living garbage bags into the Muppet TV control room. The garbage is as loud and obnoxious as you'd expect living garbage to be, leading Kermit to try and find various ways to get rid of it, from hiring cowboys to herd it away to trying to burn it with a flamethrower. Eventually, a garbage scow captain convinces the garbage bags to sail the world with him as like a rock band, and that takes care of the garbage. They go off sailing on a ship singing On the Road Again. And all is well until Digit immediately accidentally ejects more garbage into the control room. And guest star Katie Lang is here too. Then it's the storyteller with Sap Sorrow, sort of a weird, slightly nicer version of Cinderella. An old king is getting lonely and wants to get married, but he can only marry the one whose finger fits perfectly in a special engagement ring, or at least so says the law of the land. He's got 2 evil daughters and 1 nice daughter, the titular Sap Sorrow, and the evil daughters are mad about the idea of a stepmom coming in and getting all of the riches after the king dies. So the 2 evil daughters concoct a freaky plan to try on the ring themselves and I guess get married to their dad. It doesn't fit either of them, but when they're about to be caught trying on the ring, Sap Sorrow hides it behind her back to cover for them and absentmindedly slips it on her finger. And now she's got to marry her dad. Yucko. Luckily for her, she has lots of animal friends who she gets to help build her a hideous, hairy disguise, and she slips away in the night. So, disguised as this hairy monster woman who calls herself the Straggle Tag, Sap Sorrow scrubs floors in another palace for years before falling in love with the dickhead prince of that palace who loves to throw balls. So, every night she goes to a ball without her hairy Straggle Tag disguise, looking hot, and then disappearing at the end of the night. And every day she has a conversation with the prince as Straggle Tag, where she kind of basically, I think, is like convincing him to be less of a dickhead. One evening, when she runs away from the ball, she leaves one of her shoes, classic Cinderella stuff. The prince declares that whoever fits the shoe, he will marry. So then the Straggle Tag comes up from the basement and fits in the shoe naturally, and the prince says he'll honor his word and marry her, at which point he's proved that he's not a dickhead anymore, and the animals rush in, they remove the hairy costume, and reveal that Straggle Tag is actually a smoking hot babe. Great for the prince.
I don't know if we want to jump ahead yet, but I do think this is one of the better episodes of The Storyteller, and part of it is there's a good balance of the fairy tale kind of fantasy and the drama and some comedy with these 2 characters.
Yes.
Yeah, that's going to be my next question is how familiar are you with the Jim Henson Hour and Storyteller? Because I think we've had various guests on who, you know, I think maybe it was Shane who had said that he had only watched the Muppet television parts of these episodes, but never watched any Storyteller episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people just haven't watched any Jim Henson Hour. So I'm curious how familiar you are with this show.
I watched many of these episodes when they first aired on NBC.
Your parents shook you awake.
I mean, there's a big ass
hedgehog on TV. You got to come see this shit.
Well, so I do remember when The Storyteller premiered as its own series before the Jim Henson Hour. I do remember my parents saying, "Oh, there's a new Jim Henson show that's starting tonight." So they made sure that I saw that. I guess that Hans My Hedgehog is the first episode.
It is, yeah.
So, yeah, and I don't know how I first found out about this show. You know, we didn't have cable at the time, so there were fewer things to watch anyway, but it was the new Jim Henson thing, and I was very excited about it. And we taped 2 of these episodes off of TV. One of them was this one. The other one was the Bobby McFerrin episode. And I had those tapes, like I would just rewatch them and rewatch them and rewatch them so many times over the years. And eventually, as I got into the fandom with people on the news groups and things, I was able to use those in tape trades and get my hands on some of the other episodes that I had never seen before.
Cool.
But yeah, I really like the Jim Henson Hour. I know it's kind of divisive. I understand that it's messy. I fully acknowledge that it's very messy and inconsistent. But everybody always talks about what a genius Jim Henson was. He was so brilliant. He was so creative. And this show is just, you know, with obviously there were a few network restrictions and notes, but this show is just kind of like Jim Henson saying, here's all the things that I'm interested in right now. Here's all the cool stuff that I want to put on television. This is what I want to show to the television audience. And I think there's something really special about that.
Yeah, I think where we've, definitely besmirched the Jim Henson Hour, I think is a lot of times feeling like it's a little bit of wasted potential because there are good ideas, there are good moments, and it just doesn't always come together, or it sometimes feel like the first draft ended up on the screen where it's like, okay, felt like there was going to be a joke there and you just went, moving on.
I think if it had gotten a second season, they probably would have made some big changes to the Muppet Television segments.
Yeah.
Because I think they were probably very excited about the technology. Like, oh, we can film this instead of a Muppet theater, we can film on a green screen and we can have an infinite number of television monitors in the background and it's going to look so cool. Mm-hmm. And then once they started doing that, it was kind of like, okay, now what do we do with this?
Yeah.
We don't have a physical space. Does it really make sense to have, random Muppets showing up in a control room of a TV studio? So I think they would have had to figure out a way to make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I would guess a lot of the stuff that we really don't react well to is the studio intervention stuff, where it does feel like you said, like they're excited to have this new thing to play with, but also it's like, and I guess we have to make the Muppet Show again with it.
They do fall back on a lot of similar Muppet Show ideas,
but I think a lot of the movie like the second half stuff, a lot of it is when we don't like it, I feel like we don't like it in a similar way that we haven't liked other Muppet stuff before, and not in a particularly like this is bad or like they're not trying very hard. But with Muppet TV, sometimes it feels like maybe they just kind of showed up that day a little bit.
Oh, and I think this one is interesting because, as I showed my hand in the intro, I think this is by far the best episode, especially of the Muppet Television part, that we've watched so far.
I think this is actually a good episode of. I think this is a good episode of television.
Right.
Period.
There you go.
Which we've said in the past, like every episode feels like its own pilot. Mm-hmm. Sometimes a successful one, sometimes not. And I think this one does rely on a lot of things that worked on the Muppet Show.
Yes, this feels like a good second episode also. Like it's not setting up a bunch of stuff. It is like we live here in this control room and then crazy things happen to us and you already know that.
Yeah, I think Jim Henson was also trying very hard not to just do the Muppet Show again, even though that's probably what the network wanted, and he probably was aware that that's what a lot of viewers would have wanted. But this one, it does feel like the kind of giving over to, okay, when we go to certain channels and monitors, that's going to be a Muppet Show number, and then we'll cut back to the weird, cool stuff that we want to do.
Last week, I asked about that episode, was it a good episode of television in general? And I think I was watching this episode, honestly, just shocked after almost every segment where I was like, I think this is good.
Nothing
I think
embarrassing
this one's pretty
happened.
good, guys.
I don't feel bad for Kermit. Which one did you do last week?
Videotape.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That one has its moments.
Yeah. And I think we determined that it was an okay episode of television, but was also inconsistent in weird ways that doesn't really work. Whereas I feel like this one is pretty consistent. It solves a lot of the problems we've had with previous episodes, or where we've asked just, why would you do that way?
Yeah.
Like they do it in a logical way in this. Or the interaction with what's happening on the TV or interacting with Jim. It all feels like this is how it was supposed to be the whole time.
Right.
And so it's very odd, given how few episodes of this show they made, how inconsistent it is from episode to episode in not only quality, but its own storytelling.
Also in another episode, like in a previous episode of this series, the garbage would have been introduced for one scene and they would have been like, this is a big problem. And then the garbage would never have shown up again. But this one did. Or
Vicky would have walked in and said, hey, I threw out all that garbage, by the way.
All the garbage
problem
is
solved.
Gone. That's okay. Yeah, but this one does fall into a more Muppet Show kind of like structure, where you can see things getting more and more dire and Kermit getting more and more stressed out. And there is even that episode where Kermit's so stressed out he has to go sing It's Not Easy Being Green. Remember that episode of Muppet Show? And he basically does that. I thought he was going to sing that for sure. But yeah, he's just like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
And the trash even at one point does get solved and then immediately comes back. And as a runner to actually work like that, I think is, again, relying on a bit of Muppet Show stuff, but it works. And when it works, just use it, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a couple episodes where they have like variety acts performing inside the control room, which doesn't make sense.
That's the problem, is like mostly the show builds up this huge concept that Kermit has access to every satellite feed in the known universe, and so he can control what you watch by giving you all this stuff. And one, I'm like, okay, Kermit has bad taste because this is what he's choosing out of everything in the world.
Sucks, yeah.
But two, so many times that's not what's happening, or they're like, hey, Gonzo, you go do something and we'll put it on TV. It's like, that's not, like, what is the show? Like,
it's a universe where every television station has Muppets on it. Doing variety show acts. Yeah.
But it does make more sense here that, sure, the studio has a trash chute, and if you push the wrong button, the trash falls out of it. That makes sense.
And the idea that because it's every known channel in the known universe, there is a garbage preacher on TV somewhere. It's, it's sort of in a multiverse situation where everything can exist because it's out there somewhere. Well, this episode opens up with Bean Bunny, who we've agreed in the past is the best character on the Jim Henson Hour, but doesn't get a ton to do this week.
But what he does get to do is very effective in small doses.
He gets some nice moments for sure.
Yeah, before he gets absolutely yeeted by Kermit the Frog, who I think is more violent towards Bean Bunny than even Ebenezer Scrooge. But yeah, Bean Bunny promises a cuteness special, which is himself blowing on a whistle. But Kermit comes in and tells Digit to hit it, which Sam mentioned is when Digit makes the mistake of ejecting all of their trash into the studio instead of the opening title sequence.
Yeah, I'm kind of warming up to Digit a little bit. I still wish he looked a little bit different, but this is a good Digit episode, I think.
I like Digit a lot. I just find him to be a lovable oddball.
I think he shows that in this episode, whereas I think in some other episodes he has been a part of the setting up a problem that's not actually a problem kind of thing, where the one where it's sort of opposite day, where he says yes instead of no.
Right.
But immediately Kermit figures out that system and is like, oh, yeah, everyone, hey, by the way, Digit just is saying the opposite today. And everyone's like, okay, no problem.
I do think maybe he could just be Gonzo, and that would be okay, too. Like, Gonzo would also push the garbage button.
But you wouldn't put Gonzo in charge of all this.
You wouldn't in the first place, that's true. You'd trust the robot, I suppose, initially.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this all makes Kermit so upset that he picks up Bean Bunny, who tries to whistle again, and just throws him off screen.
I don't think he's allowed to do that.
That feels like one of those things people forget Kermit did.
Where Kermit is a jerk.
Right. And I think that's something that people, will bring up about other versions of Kermit or whatever and say like, well, that's not my Kermit kind of thing. But this is one of those things where I'm like, so is your Kermit the violent one or the one who fat shames characters or who fires people who don't want to do what he does? Like, which jerk version of Kermit do you prefer?
Yeah.
He's not a good boss. Well, Jim comes in to find the Thought Lion chowing down on some Doritos, which leads to my second favorite Jim Henson Dorito moment I've ever seen. The first being when Big Bird offers him nachos in the Henson's Place
Jimmy,
documentary.
want some
both
nachos?
times they're referred to as nachos.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, does Jim Henson love Doritos? Why is it Doritos twice?
I think everybody loved Doritos back then.
And did he always just call them nacho corn chips?
Yeah, just Jim Henson saying, what's that, nacho corn chips?
I think if I had to describe Doritos, it would take me like 10 or 15 words before I got to the word nacho. Right? I guess I'd say
the flavor is
nacho cheesier.
Cheese.
But,
some of them, yeah.
But even then, I think I wouldn't say, but the chip itself is a nacho. Because it's just not really a nacho.
It's just a corn chip.
It's just a triangle. It just happens to be triangular.
I think that's why Dorito is the perfect word.
Yeah, it's a Dorito. There's no other word for it.
But nacho implies that you have melted cheese on top of it.
That's right.
Like describe a Frito to me, Sam.
They're just like kind of like a Frito.
There you go. Perfect word. We've proved it here. Can't perfect Frito.
I guess those are corn chips and Doritos are tortilla chips.
They're like big Captain Crunch. They kind of hurt your mouth.
Whoa, okay. I think you're going down a road that you can't come back from as far as making this even somehow more confusing.
Okay.
If I ask you to describe Fritos to me and you say, so you know Captain Crunch?
Big savory Captain
You're
Crunch.
lost.
Okay.
Yeah, you smush it and curve it. Well, Jim is hyping up the Sapsaro Storyteller episode, but first he lets us know that Kermit is going to have Katie Lang as a special guest this week. But Kermit has bigger problems because the trash has come to life in the form of amazing puppets.
Is this where he describes Katie Lang as like the up-and-coming country and western singer?
Yes, it is.
It's funny to think of her that way because she became, I think, much bigger and more successful as more of a straightforward pop singer.
This was the moment, and well, I guess this combined with the musical performance in a little bit are the moments I realized I'd never heard a Katie Lang song in my goddamn life, and I had no idea what she sounded like.
The only one I've ever heard is her singing Jingle Bell Rock on Pee-wee's Christmas special.
Which is fabulous. Yeah,
which is one of the best parts of a very good special, yeah.
But also there's just something so charming about country and western music. Putting that "and" in there, and instead of just calling it country music.
He's being really a cute old-fashioned kind of guy in this intro, I think.
I think there's also something to it. I didn't go super deep into this, and it's not my area of expertise, so I'm not going to vouch for what I read on Wikipedia. But in looking up the song that Katie Lang performs, which is Waltz Me Once Again Round That Dance Floor, this was from an album that she had put out in like 86, 87, something around that, I think. And it was a like purposeful throwback to old country music album. Like it was supposed to be like a Patsy Cline inspired album. Yeah. And so I think maybe at the time, like country and western was maybe a good reference point for what kind of music she was trying to do.
Yeah. Okay. It made a lot of sense when he said that, because I have also never thought of her that way. But it's also kind of what she does in the Pee-wee's Christmas special. It explains like why she wears the big cowboy dresses like that.
Yeah, she's still in the same mode in that.
It says that she was called the Canadian cowpunk.
Cowpunk?
In 1985, in an issue of Rolling Stone, she had purposefully established a style that she referred to as cowboy punk and eventually became known as a Canadian cowpunk.
All right. I mean, that sounds super rad. And
that does sound really cool.
Want to learn more about Katie Lang because of it.
Yeah.
Well, Waldo shows up because, don't forget, he's helpful with ratings and demographics twice on this show.
Yeah.
He is here to remind Kermit that, hey, we have some preteen female viewers. They don't care about trash. What they care about, blemishes. So let's switch over to Spot That Blemish to keep our teenage girl crowd
interested in the show. Gross.
A little Waldo goes a long way for me. I was ready for him to be done being around.
I like him in small doses, but small doses are fine.
Especially because the moment later on in the episode when he shows up, I don't know what's happening. There's like this weird moment between sketches where him and Kermit and the trash are talking about something, and he turns into a clown.
And it seems like he's supposed to have turned into something else or something. Like it doesn't track with what the conversation is.
Well, I feel like the conversation, I don't know if they changed some dialogue in post or what happened, but like the conversation doesn't really mean anything, the conversation they have later on. It just kind of is like talking around something and then they move on.
At some point in this scene, one of the trash bags, when Kermit refers to them as garbage, says, "We prefer the term previously essential material." That is the kind of hacky joke about like politically correct speak that I associate with the 90s. That became very overdone in the 90s, but it's 1989, so the Muppets are actually ahead of their time here.
Well, we've seen Jim doing this with Kermit specifically since like the early 70s.
He likes to, whenever anyone calls out like frog things, he's like, well, that's racist, or that's like a stereotype. I prefer to
be called a frog American, stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So Jim has always had this, there's just been weird undercurrent, either with Jim or with Jerry Jewell or somebody who's writing this stuff, where they like to that joke construction is popular to them.
So it was already in the comedy ether.
I would bet there's like a Rolf Jimmy Dean where he said something about like being a dog American or something like that.
Oh, there definitely is now that you say that.
Yeah.
Canine American.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is sort of, you know, there's of the time moments of you're writing a joke because you know this joke is popular and will hit with the audience who is watching TV in this moment.
Yeah, and there was that stuff on The Muppet Show, too.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, I think about, you know, one of your recent Moving Right Along episodes, you're talking about how there are some jokes in Muppets from Space that aren't really jokes and are just moments that are said or done in a way that you're like, I guess that was supposed to be a joke, where just Piggy's like, I gotta pee. And you're like,
just like,
why?
Right, or just wisecracks or sarcastic reactions that aren't really jokes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like whether or not they're improv'd or actually written down, who knows? But they stay in the final product, so it's very odd that, where is that coming from? Well, next up we get, I'm going to say it again, the best of the 4 Bootsy and Brad sketches that we've seen.
Oh, really? I thought this one felt like the first Bootsy and Brad sketch that they ever did.
That's why I think it's the best, because it's the only one where they ever made a creative choice.
Okay.
And provide at least a little bit of context, because Kermit asked Digit to throw to the conspicuous consumption channel, which leads us to Bootsy and Brad in a way that doesn't necessarily make sense, but we've never seen anything this, A to B to C when it comes to Bootsy and Brad. They typically just kind of show up.
Yeah.
And I think there's at least one time when he says the fashion doll channel or something like that.
Yeah. And again, the TV concept behind this is very broken and never consistent.
Yeah.
But yes, I think my theory is that this was the first one they made, and then they decided to pivot.
Yeah.
Because in the other 3, Bootsy has the exact same hairstyle. She has this like tall, like side pony.
Right.
And this one, her hair is down. This is also, if you watch all 4 of these, which why would you? This is the only one where they act like dolls.
Yeah, where their arms are not quite.
Oh, is it really?
In every other one, they're acting like sitcom actors, just having a good time.
Brad is always pretty close to how he is in this one, but Bootsy is a lot stiffer in this one than she gets.
They're
to
both
be later.
stiff. They're walking into things. They don't really look at each other. They're wide-eyed. There are things that happen to them, which is something we've asked for in previous Bootsy and Brad things of like, what is the little girl doing here? Because like when in one, a soldier with a flamethrower shows up, she seems surprised that this G.I. Joe is burning down her dollhouse.
A functioning flamethrower, yeah.
Whereas in this, I'm like, the moments that are funniest in this is when the little girl drops a lime wedge on Brad's head.
Yeah.
And when she makes him drink by just pouring the beverage on himself. Yeah.
Right.
These actually feel like toys come to life in this moment.
Yeah. And it does this one is successful. You're right, Matt, that this one is successful beginning to end. And then it does feel like they were like, that was great. We should make more. And then they're like, oh, fuck. We don't have any more ideas.
I'm a Bootsy and Brad defender. I think the idea is funny. I think the actors really sell it.
Yeah.
I had not thought about which one might be the best, but now that you're talking about this, it's got to be this one. Like when Brad says he's going to leave and come back in, and he just like crashes into the door and turns around. I love that stuff.
Very funny.
So they should have stuck with more of that.
Or when she horrifyingly gets ripped out of the dollhouse by a giant dog.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Yeah, and like connecting it to, the little girl saying she just got this dress and she has a swimsuit for Bootsy, and that being a part of the storyline, and then it pivoting very quickly to what if we got married? And I don't know, it's so different in an interesting kind of way. I just feel like this is how they all should have been done. Like they could have been the same storylines where she's becoming president or he's shooting off on a rocket. But I think having these extra little like comedic beats where something is happening because they're a toy, like he's dumping a giant thing of water down his front because she pulled a cup of dog water out for him. Like that's just a fun moment that didn't even, overstay its welcome. Didn't like beat you over the head with it.
And their understanding of, I guess, biology being limited to the little girl's observation of the dolls, where the only difference between boys and girls is that girls have bumps, which is, it's like almost seems a little risque for a Muppet thing, but it's funny.
It's on a line, especially when you're like, oh, because this one is doing such a good job of making it feel like the little girl is playing and saying these things, like then you're suddenly getting into like, is the little girl making the joke about from the waist down we're exactly the same? It just is like, okay, I'm like, it works, but it is a little uncomfortable.
I think there's an innocence to it though, because that's what she sees when she looks at her dolls.
They also bring back the bumps joke later on, which was, I think, wild for them to have a callback. But I did enjoy it.
What was the callback?
During the raccoon and bear scene, they identify the male of the species because he doesn't have bumps.
Whoa, I didn't even notice that. What the hell? It's like this episode was actually written by the same person.
Like they wrote the entire script before starting to film.
They had a whole idea. there is a weird moment where, only because I was watching with headphones, I noticed this. After Brad is begging Bootsy to let her change in front of him, she explains that they can't because she is a girl and he is a boy. And Brad goes, "What's the difference?" You can hear a crew member laugh offset.
Awesome.
And in that moment, I was just like, whoa, I forgot there's like 30 people watching this weirdly silent play that's happening in front of them.
Yeah, I've seen behind the scenes footage of the sketch with the giant teddy bear being filmed, and it is fun to see, like, oh yeah, it's not just Bootsy and Brad on set, it's all these other people.
Yeah.
But that moment seems very similar to me to the Barbie movie when Ken asks if he can spend the night at Barbie's house, and neither of them is sure like why he would want to do that.
Well, as Brad is about to propose marriage to Bootsy, the dog, whose name is maybe Fred, it was hard to hear.
It's not Fufu, even though it is Fufu.
Yeah, I think the little girl calls it Fred. Snags Bootsy and just rips her out of the house.
Kind of it's shockingly violent, her getting pulled out of the door in the first place. Yeah.
But I loved it because, again, all we wanted is more interactivity.
Yeah.
My other previously favorite Bootsy and Brad moment was when Brad gets strapped to the rocket and shot across the dollhouse, and then is like has like a broken arm and leg, but it's okay because he's a doll.
Yeah. If this had been either the first or the only, I think if this had been the first Bootsy and Brad we saw, it would have set the tone in a way that would have made me like the whole thing better. Mm. And if it had been the only Bootsy and Brad we saw, I feel like we'd be like, whoa, that was fucking crazy. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Have you talked about the fact that Brad is the other Wilson brother?
We have, because I disproved it and got it removed from Muppet Wiki.
What? Yeah, it's still on Wikipedia.
Yes, because I think everywhere else sourced it from Muppet Wiki, because it was one of the earliest Muppet Wiki entries. I looked back. It was from 2006. The first time somebody put in there that he was the third Wilson brother, which bothered me so much that I berated Shane Keating so much that we finally got it deleted, because there's just no way it's him based on his acting career. Andrew Wilson is the name of this actor. And this is, so Andrew Wilson, the third Wilson brother of Luke and Owen, is an actor, but did not start acting until like the early to mid 90s, when Wes Anderson started making short films with that crew of friends. And Andrew Wilson sounds very different in those early days because they've got a Texas drawl. Yeah. And so I would be willing to bet $1,000 on this one that's not the third Wilson brother based on anything I've seen.
So are there two Andrew Wilsons? Is that?
Yes. And I think there's just nothing known about the actors who played Bootsy and Brad, because the actor who played Bootsy, she also sort of just disappeared after this. I think her IMDb has like one other thing on it, and you can't really find anything. So I think this was just two local Toronto.
Well, I was going to say they're probably both Canadian. Then she sounds more Canadian than he does, but yeah.
And I think like there is, as far as I can tell, no reason that Andrew Wilson would have acted before the Bottle Rocket short film, especially in Canada.
Wow. Okay. Well, you taught me something. Thanks.
So do you think he was in the German television film from 1993?
I also don't think that, because I saw that on his IMDb as well, and I don't know why that's there.
Next.
But it seems like if he is in that, he's just like an extra in the background.
Okay. And he just found himself in Germany one day.
Well, yeah. It's very odd, but it is no longer on Muppet Wiki. Right now, it just says Andrew Wilson is the actor who plays Brad.
Wow. Okay.
So that's my contribution to Muppet Wiki is removing things.
Yeah. No, that's important though. It's to not have.
But it's well and truly out there. Like it's on many other pages. That's like Andrew Wilson got his start in the Jim Henson Hour, and it's like,
wow.
You can't put that genie back in the bottle at a certain point.
Yeah, what a revelation.
Kermit says he'd do anything to get rid of all this garbage, and if there's a scheme afoot, you know who's going to show up? It's creepy Leon, who's like, hey, Leon. I can help you out. And Kermit's like, anything under $100. And this is, again, Leon, a character we have not liked. I think this is a perfect use of Leon.
He's performing a function that matches his character, is right. Yeah.
Yeah, in the past, he's just kind of been there to be like, hey, anyone want to look at some sexy ladies?
Yeah, I can't blame you for not liking Leon. There's not a lot to him.
No. But at least, again, he serves a purpose here. You kind of get some insight into his character of what Kermit expects him to do. The moment he shows up, he's like, okay, hold on. I need guardrails here.
Yeah.
And then what he does and tries to, get money out of Kermit, you're like, I understand this guy.
And like in the context of like a Muppet show, like a shady fixer who's like hanging out in the alley that Kermit can be like, look, man, we need 4 dozen chickens. Please do it we need it no matter what the cost. And then something going wrong because of
he
that.
knows a
does
guy
make
who
sense.
knows a guy, but then it goes hilariously awry. Yeah, that would have been good if this show had continued. I think they would have figured out some of this stuff.
They would have keyed in, for sure.
Well, and there's some, deniability from Kermit, because I think there's a reference to Leon not even being on the payroll for this show. Like, he's not technically an employee. So I think Kermit has the ability to be like, Leon's my fixer. Leon's going to get shit done. I don't hire him. He doesn't work for me. Like, whatever Leon does is on Leon.
Dark place. He's been in the entertainment industry for way too long at this point.
Well, we get the first of 2 Katie Lang musical performances, which is already a step up from most musical performances we see on the Jim Henson Hour.
Yeah.
But it's also elevated by allowing her to interact with Muppets and the context of the episode itself, which, again, we've seen plenty of musical performances in the past where someone's on a green screen singing a song, and then we never hear from them or see them ever again in the episode.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about how we're like, oh, I don't want it to just be like, it can't just be a straightforward performance. But this kind of was. I mean, she's
it
in
feels
a
like
fun...
the Muppet Show. It's they're on a set, and there's so many Muppets all over, and she's interacting with them all.
I think this is like one of the most Muppet Show things we've seen by far on the Jim Henson Hour, because like this feels exactly like you could just drop it into a Muppet Show episode.
Yeah. I think there's an aspect of it where what I'm really missing is that I want the guests to feel like they're in a place and that they're actually having any kind of fun. And I think that's kind of what's been absent a little bit. Or like it can't just feel like they're somewhere and there happens to be Muppets with them. But like Katie Lang being in this barn, there's Muppets dancing around. She really is just singing the song. There's no through line or story about the song or anything like that. But she looks like she's having a good time. And that's really maybe just like the missing ingredient.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better than her just being kind of floating in limbo on a monitor.
Right.
Where she's just kind of isolated from everything else.
With like cows chroma keyed in behind her or something. I don't know.
Yeah. There's also a nice moment where she breaks and like giggles mid-song.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh, she's singing live, which is amazing. And also just leaving that in just added to that feeling of she's having a great time.
Yeah.
And I enjoy watching her have a good time on this.
And her dress is fucking cool too. It's got a little cows and fence on it. I like that.
Well, continuing the cowboy theme, some cowboys show up to herd the trash out of the studio because Leon paid them $20. But Leon wants $120 from Kermit because he's like, we got a contract right here. And Kermit says, that contract is garbage, which brings the garbage back.
This was a little sweaty. I feel like they could have... The cowboy thing, there were parts of it that was like, I feel like there was supposed to be a pun here about like cowboys and garbage or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't know why it was cowboys.
Yeah. And then the $120 thing was like, it feels like maybe if they had another couple days, they could have figured out why he wanted $120 or something like that.
Well, it does allow them to do the herd of garbage.
Yes, it does.
Which is the variation on one of the Muppets' favorite old jokes.
And one of my favorites and Sam's least favorites.
Matt loves that joke so much. And when he started saying it, I was like, fuck you, Matt.
When Kermit's like, I got trampled by a herd of garbage. And I was like, oh, here it comes. And there's Bean Bunny.
Herd of garbage.
Of course I got herd of garbage.
Yeah. It is nice to see somebody else get to do it. I feel like it's usually like Fozzie.
The punchline being, I don't care what the garbage herd, Bean Bunny knows no shame.
Yeah.
It's like
and also it's always herd of cows. Like every other time they do this joke, it is herd of cows.
Right.
And so herd of garbage is at least a little twist.
Yeah, especially because there's no such thing as a herd of garbage in real life.
And maybe enough of a twist that if you haven't watched every other Muppet project ever, you maybe would be like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
This was just for Matt specifically. Like Jerry Jewell knew from the future. Got to get one in there for Matt.
The guy who's going to discover my Jerome Crystal secret.
Yeah. He found like there's like that episode of Star Trek where they find Data's head in a cave and it's been there for like 2,000 years or whatever. Jerry Jewell like found like an old iPod from the future buried underground and it had every episode of our show on it. He's like, dear God.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
I feel like he could give us some more clear signs than just one herd of cows joke. Well, then we get a second musical number from Katie Lang where she gets to sing a Sesame Street hit, I Love Trash, accompanied by the trash that we have seen taking over the studio.
I kind of
what a fun choice.
Yeah. The country spin on it too was awesome. I feel like we don't get different instrumentation of these like classic songs very often, and I really like that.
That's true.
Well, we also get a lot of musicians singing their own songs on Jim Henson Hour. When they show up, it's like, hey, I got a new single. Let's perform this.
Yeah.
And then they kind of just disappear.
It's not
so the
hot,
fact that she
hot,
gets
hot,
to do two songs.
It's almost hot, hot, hot.
I still can't believe he didn't sing hot, hot, hot.
It's that other one, yeah.
Yeah.
But the fact that she gets two songs and one of them is a classic Muppet song, again, feels like a Muppet Show decision.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was a little disappointed we didn't get Oscar pop-up. I really thought maybe we would. Because I think
at
at
the
one
very,
point,
very end or something, just like the trash is...
Yeah, when Kermit at the end, when the garbage cow captain comes in, Kermit's like, I got a professional come in. I really thought for sure it was going to be Oscar.
Oh, that would have been funny.
Yeah.
It would have been like, come on, boys, I got somewhere for you to go.
Carol's like, I'm not going to Canada.
Yeah, it could have been a silent cameo.
They could have put him in a computer screen like they do every other like a star.
Yeah, he could have just been on a monitor.
Oh, yeah. Digit Q PBS on the,
that would have been
public
great.
television channel.
Wow, you're making me wish this show got another season. I never really considered.
I really think they would have figured out so much of the stuff. They would have made it better, and it would have made more sense.
It's not like the first season of The Muppet Show is all the way there. They need.
That's the thing. People forget. Yeah, if you go back and watch the first season and expect it to look like the last few seasons, they had not worked it out yet.
Well, then Kermit does disappear to a quiet forest glade to get a little bit of a break from the trashy studio. This even has a nice little moment where he calls out the technology. The fact that he is able to teleport into the TV set is a little bit not as good, but it's a little bit like the milk moment in episode 1 of The Muppet Show, where he's like, think about this, folks.
Oh, yeah.
Like calling out the sort of meta weird, like, hey, we're able to do this because it's a TV show.
Yeah, and it's such a like stark contrast to the last episode we watched where Kermit gets pulled into the TV by the monster hand, but then
isn't in the sketch
that he gets pulled into. Yeah, I was fully expecting it to go to the foresty glade and not show Kermit there, but they did. God bless them, they did.
Yeah, Kermit's talking sweetly about nature, and he's prepared to tell us a story about woodland creatures. And I was like, this is very sweet. And then, for an educational frog most of the time, he decides to pivot and say, here's a story about way back when the world began, when all the birds were gray.
He's taking a page out of John Hurt's book a little bit here.
Yeah, I was thinking that it does sort of extend the basic idea of the storyteller of telling these old folktale type stories with modern technology.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I liked about the, sort of meta part of this, a penguin wanders in to the woods and they're like, hey, you're on the wrong monitor, dude.
Yep.
You're monitor 8. And he's like,
sorry. Yeah, always love a Muppet Penguin.
Yeah.
This is a particularly good one. I feel like you don't hear them talk that often either. And he got to say an actual word.
Well, and again, the idea that it opens up so many questions about this world that I don't have any answers on, but the idea that, they know they're on monitors in this TV studio, they can wander into the wrong one. Like, it does feel like so much of this goes back to the original, inner tube idea where Crash maybe was his name? The Muppet who kept running through Crasher, the punk looking guy who would like show up in all the different shows and stuff. There's something there.
Yeah, I like it.
But yeah, Kermit's here to tell us about when life was real monochromatic until the cockatoo made an amazing discovery. And for me, this is a pretty straightforward story. Bird finds color, shares that color with the other birds, and at the end, they're out of color. So the nightingale just gets to put some gold on its tongue, which is how it got its beautiful song. But the interesting part about this is how it's filmed, which is rotoscoped puppets.
Mm-hmm.
This is so impressive to me. To do this on a TV budget maybe it didn't cost that much, I don't know, but it looks so good and interesting and just so visually compelling. To do this on a TV show in 1989 is so impressive to me.
Yeah, for those that don't know what rotoscoping is, essentially it's where you film something and then you can paint over it. People use this in a lot of ways. There was a movie in the mid-2000s called A Scanner Darkly that was like an entire movie that I'm sure you could make in 5 seconds in an AI, unfortunately now. But back then it took hours and hours of hard labor, which is amazing. And then they did a great job. But this is a digital sort of MS Paint level detail where they have clearly filmed real bird puppets. You can just tell from the performance that they have recorded blue screen footage of bird puppets doing these scenes, and then went back digitally, added a background, and then drew over the puppets with like a black outline, and like they pulled up the paint bucket and hit gray, and it looks just so different than anything else we've seen.
Yeah.
And is a really interesting technique for them to lean on here.
It doesn't look like the sort of blocky computer animation that was common at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it
like a Waldo.
Well, and it doesn't even look like Waldo, though. It looks like something kind of completely its own, because they are physical Muppets that were performed by puppeteers and then just painted over. I don't know, it just looks so cool.
Yeah, because it is animation, like it's 2D animation, but it feels like real puppets. Like it's easy to watch this and know that they did it for real first.
Right, they
and
have
not just because we're Muppet nerds.
The
like
weight
you can watch
and the
this
movement
and it feels,
of real puppets. Yeah. And when they start to get their colors, the colors sort of change actively on the birds in real time. Like you see a red bird fly by and it kind of shimmers with different shades of red.
Yeah, which they did with the chameleon in Song of the Cloud Forest.
Oh, yeah.
And so I do like to see them trying out different technologies on this show.
I would guess, I don't want to have a big debate about it. I don't think that they're necessarily rotoscoped in the traditional sense, as in that they've been painted over manually. I think if I had to guess, they outlined a lot of the parts of the birds in really dark black when they were building the puppets, and then they put some kind of filter over it, especially on the sides, to like cell shade it. There's no wiggliness to any of the, like the eye stays perfectly circular the whole time. I think they've done this with filters instead of actually painting over
or some
anything.
like blue screen sort of like blend mode, almost more than a rotoscoping.
I would love to see what these original puppets looked like.
Yeah, and I don't think we've ever seen them in anything else after this. So
I'll have to check.
That's a good
next
theory.
Week we
that
obviously
they were built especially
next
for
week
this.
we'll be discussing the Secret of the Muppets episode, where they show behind the scenes footage of Jim Henson Hour. So if it's anywhere, it'll probably be there.
Yeah.
Or there is that YouTube channel that we mentioned a while ago that is just like a bunch of on-set behind-the-scenes footage of Jim Henson Hour. It could potentially be on that YouTube channel somewhere. We'd have to like dig through hours of footage. But yeah, I think you have a good point in that it should be rougher if they're digitally painting these frame by
like
frame.
cell shaded, like Wind Waker. You know, there's some. I'm not quite sure how they do it, but I'm pretty sure.
I can see it being like if these puppets were, like you said, outlined in black, but then they were blue puppets and they did it on a blue screen where they could just remove bird from image essentially. And then they paint whatever they want behind bird.
Right.
It could work as essentially a mask.
That's how I do it, at least. But I don't know how they get the big dark outline around the bird. That's the thing I'm not sure about. But that feels like
some of these things that I could do in
Photoshop
After Effects now in like 20 minutes, they did not have access to.
The special would be extremely easy to make now, is right.
But even the fact that some of the criticisms that are maybe deserved of this whole series are that they were so excited about the technology that the technology came before the storytelling and et cetera. I think this is a good example of they use the technology to, to tell a story that is charming, and it feels like it could be a real fable from, hundreds of years ago about how these birds all got their colors. I think it's really good and effective.
I think Cloud Forest is the same way, where it is janky, but it's janky in the way that like an early video game was, where it's like they knew their limitations and they were working within it. It looks artistic, even though it's not as like what's the word? Nice looking. I can't think of the actual word, as it would be nowadays. It's like they know their tool, and they're telling an appropriate story in an appropriate visual style for their tool.
Yeah, and a nice and pleasant story.
Yes, that too. Yeah,
I think that's because we've thrown out some complaints about the technology and the over reliance on things, but I think what we have a problem with is that the studio control center green screen element, where you have this massive green screen set behind you with all these television monitors, because it's just a green screen, doesn't allow you to do much, like anything interesting in that space. And so a lot of times they actually feel like they're limited by the technology in those scenes. Whereas in this is embracing and using the technology to tell an interesting story.
Good job, Jim Henson Hour people.
You figured it out in the last episode that NBC aired before they didn't show any more episodes. Then we have a very odd sketch here where a bear and a raccoon are wandering through the woods, going to observe a human family barbecuing in their backyard.
An early laugh for me was that the raccoon is named Emil Lundquist, not like Ronnie the raccoon or something like that.
He sounds just like Dr. Strangepork.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
He's a doctor with a German accent played by Jerry Nelson.
Yeah.
That's a strange pork. This is just weird, I think. It's okay. I enjoyed it just fine.
It's okay.
But there's a few moments where they're talking about the mating ritual about to begin, and then they get interrupted because the little girl notices them. The bear's like, oh man, I wanted to see that part. And it felt like some Bobo energy to me,
yes,
like a
he
proto-Bobo.
was definitely proto-Bobo, I felt.
But then the little girl yelling, Mom, Dad, look, there's a raccoon, a bear, and a film crew in the woods.
That made me laugh.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
That got a laugh out of me. I thought this was just really like, this was just like traditionally funny and didn't need to be anything else. It was just very funny.
It feels kind of like a postcard from Uncle Traveling Matt from Fraggle Rock.
Yeah, totally.
A non-human species misinterpreting what they see humans doing.
Yeah.
But it ends with somebody shooting them.
Well, yeah, that never happened to Uncle Traveling Matt, as far as I know. But they think the marshmallows are little creatures that they're going to stab and cook and eat.
Totally.
So, yeah, that sounds like something Traveling Matt would do.
Definitely feels Uncle Matty. Well, speaking of packing, Digit has a flamethrower because he's going to incinerate the trash. But don't worry, Kermit called a waste management company, which is a sailor, a scout captain who shows up. His plan is to just drive the garbage around the world aimlessly forever.
Is that what happens for real? What happens to garbage on garbage
It does
cows?
feel like a commentary on the fact that humans don't know how to ultimately, we don't know how to get rid of our garbage forever.
Yeah.
But I also was like, is that the worst plan? It's not on land. It's not like making anything toxic, I guess. I don't know. It's not in the water.
When we
Even though they show that at the
scow,
end, they're just throwing stuff in the water.
They're just jumping into the ocean,
Yeah.
But he pitches it to them as going on a worldwide tour. They're going to be a rock band. And Kermit says, I don't look at it as losing my garbage, as gaining a closing number, which is another thing we've asked for in these things, is for the closing number to have some attachment to what's been going on in the show. And so the fact that the garbage carries all the way through and leads to the closing number, which is a pretty good closing number.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's all connected.
The boat was pretty cool with like the hook that was lowering trash into the thing.
Yeah, again, a full set. Like they had to build a giant prop boat and all this stuff. That it had enough of almost a mouth that I thought the boat was going to start singing the way it's designed.
Oh yeah.
The way it was built, I was just like, is that going to open up and start talking?
It's also funny that sometimes they can be like, tell a whole story with Ted Danson where it's like, don't destroy the ocean. Then they can have this where they're like throwing trash into the ocean, but Kermit doesn't show up at the end to be like, makes
don't
you think,
do that,
doesn't it?
Good night, everyone. Yeah, I don't think they're endorsing throwing garbage in the ocean. But yeah, that's funny.
But they don't have time to tell us not to do it because it's time for John Hurt as the storyteller.
I did one last closing thought on that. When Digit had his flamethrower, the unfortunate thing that came to mind was that he got it from Elon Musk. And then I thought, nowadays, Digit would be best friends with Elon Musk. He would be big Musk.
I think he'd be a creation of Elon Musk.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't ruin Digit for me.
And how wild would it be to like see Digit come back on the new Muppet Show?
Yeah, he'd be like, I'm hooked up to Starlink. I can download anything you want.
No, Digit appreciates the arts.
Yeah, I mean, they could use Digit as a commentary on things like
an AI
EVs
or
and
something.
stuff.
Yeah.
Just burst into flame randomly or something. And be like, oh, my Tesla parts. No.
Yeah, he has to go back for yet another recall.
My Tesla parts.
Gotta get another software update so I can make fart noises.
Yeah.
Well, as abruptly as always, Jim comes back from commercial and just says, and now here's John Hurt as a storyteller. The storyteller introduces the story of a ring and says that the girl whose finger fits that ring will become queen. We hinted earlier about a good episode of The Storyteller, and I think, one, it is a pretty good episode, but two, one of the most visually interesting episodes of The Storyteller that exists.
Yeah.
Because he drops the ring and it starts to roll across the floor, and then all of a sudden the ring is giant and rolling through a ballroom, and knocks on a statue, which almost falls. And that's the cut that we get to the main story where the king catches the statue before it falls.
Yeah, it's weird
And
as
that's
hell.
the first of many moments throughout this where we see the storyteller and the dog and all these other things actually interacting with the story.
Yes,
I love all
that
those things. Yeah.
I love that the dog was so active in this one. And he was like, the last one that we talked about, the dog was not engaged in any way with the story. He just listened when like something violent would happen. But in this one, he was like interjecting and showing up in the story. I thought was so cool.
Yeah, this was like an ideal format of the storyteller for me. Like both, like honestly, like, again, like this whole episode, if this had been the first episode of the Jim Henson Hour I had seen as a viewer, as a network exec or whatever, I'd be like, this show's going to work.
Yeah.
This is great.
Sure. Yeah. I think the episodes of the storyteller that don't work as well are the ones that maybe rely a little bit too much on old school fairy tale logic.
Yeah.
Where things happen and it's not totally clear why.
Or they don't comment on it. Like on this one, we get the storyteller and the dog interacting with the story, be like, hey, that's not cool. Like don't do that.
She cannot marry her father.
Yeah.
You
Or
cannot marry your father.
Yeah. And this one, it does seem more like things are happening for a reason and you kind of understand what's going on.
It's like a better baseline story than other fairy tales are. The one with the thought line is not a good fairy tale. It doesn't.
Or the Heartless Giant was one that I think it just it didn't have a very engaging main character, and then the storyteller and the dog didn't really interact with it at all, and so it just kind of became a dull story that he would told us, and it was like, and it's over.
Yeah, but one I think that does have fairy tale logic that works really well is the one where the guy's catching death. Like that one.
Soldier and Death is a good one. Yeah,
that
that's probably my second favorite.
Mm-hmm. That one was good again because it goes so wild.
It's so
like,
heightened.
He walks to hell, he walks to heaven, he gets.
And it actually does have really like intricate logic. Like the bag works exactly how it's supposed to work every time. Yeah, maybe that's not so fairy tale logic. It's just weird.
Well, I love the storyteller's introduction to there's a king who had 3 daughters. 2 were bad, 1 was good.
No. That's what you need to know.
That's
right to the point.
Later, it's revealed that the bad daughters are named Princess Bad Sister 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the king wants to find a wife, mostly because his daughters are about to head out and find some husbands, and he doesn't want to be lonely. So he's like, all right, better pick up this wedding ring and find somebody who fits it before they're all out of the house. So we see the storyteller and the dog again, and at this moment in the story, they're in the background of the hall while the family's sort of eating around a table. They reuse this set so often through the storyteller. Like this room that the storyteller is in by the fireplace is used in, I'd say, half the storytellers. They use this room for something else. I don't think ever before the storyteller has been in the room. Like, it comes across more as like saving money on sets. They're going to use this as a ballroom or a throne room or something like that. This is, I think, just an interesting way to sort of have this vignette happening where, I don't know, it almost frames the storyteller in such a weird, different way than every other episode, where I feel like this is the first time that we are seeing and hearing the story and not just having like a narrator throw to scenes, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It's more integrated.
Yeah.
Right. The idea of sitting and looking at somebody telling a story and then imagining it at the same time while you're still looking at them comes across.
Yeah.
Is that
and not having to rely on, necessarily visual tricks to do that too often. There is some shadow work later on, which is interesting, where the storyteller is showing up as a shadow on the wall as he's telling part of the story. But yeah, I think it all just works pretty well. One of the sisters gets her finger momentarily stuck in the ring, which then falls on the floor, and Sapsaro, for some reason, picks it up and slips it on her own finger for safekeeping, the storyteller tells us.
I kept knowing the original Cinderella story. I did keep expecting them to start hacking pieces of their hands off, Like,
yeah, sure.
It's alluded to. She says, what if I just cut my finger off?
Yeah.
That fixes this problem. Because the ring does fit her. They do find it on her, and everyone's like, well, I guess you gotta marry your daughter now.
Dad. What the fuck?
Yeah, but is it a good question about what the first daughter was thinking?
Well, they have some conversation about, they think that if it fits on one of their fingers, their dad just won't marry anyone because
I thought that's what they said too, because it surprised me when John Hurt was like, now you got to marry your dad.
Right. I think the bad sisters were thinking if the ring fits one of his daughters, he just won't marry anyone, and we won't have to worry about our inheritance going to some other lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But once it fits on Sapsaro's finger, the kingdom is just like, well, the rule is the rule. You got to do it.
This is how we do things here.
Which,
Yeah.
Jumping ahead a little bit, the end of the story, like we find out very quickly offhand that like the dad died, so there is no king in this kingdom currently. They don't say who's replaced him or who's ruling.
That's true.
And it does feel like, okay, now if she puts the ring on, would she just become the ruler of the land?
Oh.
Loophole.
Which is where I thought it was going, and then it's like not addressed at all. So
Maybe
she
let the two evil sisters have it,
Maybe. I don't know, but if the ring doesn't fit them, then they can't.
So there's just no monarch
Falls into
of this kingdom
decline
anymore.
Yeah, very confusing.
I also wondered, he's the king. Can he not just get the law changed?
It does feel like if anyone could change the law, it's
whoever can fit the ring on their finger, unless it's the offspring or a blood relative of the currently reigning monarch.
Yeah, put an asterisk there.
Well, the only loophole that Sapphire sees here is to delay the wedding. And so she's like, how do I draw this out? And so she keeps asking for more and more specific needs for her dresses. Her first dress, she asked for a dress of the palest silk, the color of the moon. And I will not wed until I have it. And so they bring her a bright blue dress, and she's like, perfect. What?
That's not the color of the moon. I really thought she would be like, you think the moon is that color? Please try it again.
I would not say that's the palest silk.
Yeah. It's
I've
also
seen
kind
paler
of
silk.
It's also funny that everybody's like in such a hurry to get her to marry her dad too. They're like, "Oh, come on, we gotta have this freaking wedding." You gotta marry
they're
your
just
dad.
so focused on the rule.
Maybe it's more of like I really don't want to have to think about it anymore that you're marrying your dad. So if we can move on, let's just not think about this anymore. Her second dress is also kind of wild because she asked for something silver and sparkly like the stars.
Mm-hmm.
And so what did they bring? A dark blue dress that does have silver sparkles on it like stars.
Yeah.
But never once did she say the word blue.
Or they're trying really hard to be like, hey, reject this dress so you don't have to marry your dad.
Oh,
That's not what it feels
she's
like.
Just like, love it. I got low standards.
I've never thought about this. I guess it just looks like the night sky. But yeah, you're right.
She just asks, like, when you're trying to delay someone by asking for very specific wants and needs,
and then
they
like,
bring you back something
that
is not what you asked for, you have every opportunity to be like, oh, I said silver, not blue. Take it back.
Yeah.
I gotta marry my dad, but I love this dress.
A third dress, I guess. Which they do get correct. They make a gold dress this time. As gold as the sun is maybe a high bar to reach, but it kind of looks like Belle's dress in Beauty and the Beast. So they did an okay job. Also, we haven't mentioned she's her friends are animals.
Oh yeah, the only puppets basically in this entire thing are her very cute little animals, companions who live in her room with her.
Which is very Disney princessy. Like woodland creatures are your friends. It is very casual in this, where there's just like swans hanging out on her bed, and there's like a squirrel walking around.
Yeah.
Turns out this whole time they've been building her something, which was a ghillie suit of sorts to turn her into a beast.
Make her hairy. A hairy lady with suspenders on. It's kind of awesome.
I love/hate this design. I think it's very interesting. It's very odd. Some of the logic gets a little flawed from here on out as far as, is this prince just a dick? Does he learn anything? If so, what does he learn? Why does she like him?
Yeah,
I'm not
sure.
I
thought she was just dirty, but it does become clear that she is a hairy monster, right? Like,
no, right?
You don't
I think it's all a disguise.
I think it's a creation.
No, I know,
it's like a wig.
But what she is presenting herself as is a hairy monster person.
Oh yes, I think no one is like, that's a weird outfit you got there. I think they think she is a beast.
Right. Okay.
You think they don't even think she's human?
Yeah, I think they probably think there's something real wrong with her.
Yeah.
But I don't think they think she's put on a costume to look this way on purpose.
Yeah, she's the straggle tag. She's like she's a Grinch adjacent kind of figure, I would say. The straggle tag.
Everyone's talking about straggle tag and the Grinch in the same sentence.
Is interesting because it's similar to the standard Cinderella story where they fall in love because they dance.
Mm-hmm.
But
we don't see so many examples of the prince being a dick.
Yeah, he is a jerk to her before.
Yeah. He throws stuff at her.
Yeah. You've covered Hey Cinderella on this podcast, right?
Yeah.
That one I've always thought is such a better variation on the Cinderella story because they meet each other before and they don't know, she doesn't know he's the prince.
Right.
And they get to know each other and develop chemistry that way.
Right.
It feels kind of like they're going for something similar to that here, where they have that heart-to-heart conversation about how he's pining for somebody and she says she's pining for somebody.
Yeah.
So they make a connection, but it doesn't change the fact that he's been a jerk to her this whole time.
It's too late after he screamed at her about like doing the laundry and also was like, I'm going to eat every goose in the whole kingdom and fuck you.
What he really needed was a giant purple splurge friend to show him.
Confide in.
Yeah.
That's right.
Or even a sarcastic Kermit friend.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, 2 years later, we see this poor creature of fur and feathers who tends to the geese in a king's garden, not her father's garden, a different king somewhere else.
Yeah.
We never see her tending to geese. We only see her like cleaning a kitchen. So
all
weird
the geese
detail
get
to
eaten
add.
in short order. So maybe she's out of a
I guess
job.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's just there for her to be immediately made mad by the prince, who's like, oh yeah, all those geese, that's your job.
Yummy,
I'm killing all of them. I love that the storyteller is like, 2 years later, we see a poor creature of fur and feathers. And the dog's like, that's the princess. And you're like, yeah, dude, we know.
Remember
there
the
could be
scene
kids
earlier?
watching who haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
But that's again, true. I love that moment. But it's also weird that we never have those moments in the storyteller.
Yeah.
Terrifying outfit where a mouse is crawling around in her hair at one
I thought
point,
that
like
was
a live,
so cool.
actual mouse.
It's her friend. I think if I met, so the prince keeps meeting this monster. She got a pretty nice voice. And I think that they've also underestimated how much people are into the Grinch too. They couldn't have expected that people would see Sorrow and be like, let's give her a shave and see what happens after that.
Yeah, she doesn't try to change her voice to make herself sound
scary. Yeah.
Which does work in her favor, I think, later on when she's like, oh, so you like her voice, huh? She's not like, so you like her voice, huh?
Right.
It is a little bit of Martha May Whovier, where it's like, this Grinch ain't so bad.
Yeah,
I'd marry that Grinch.
If at the end the straggle tag was like, you want to get married to me? I'd take a couple beats, maybe.
He surprisingly doesn't hesitate, much like his, much like the king. Like, I guess the rules are the rules. Yeah, you gotta marry whoever.
Well, I mean, I suppose that you're right in that actually does set up that the rules are the rules for these people, and it doesn't actually mean that he's less of a dickhead. But I do think that was maybe what they were trying to go for, was like he stuck to his word. Except we've already seen such a more extreme example of this that doesn't really work, I suppose.
Right.
That's his redemption. And also he's just seen the Bad Sisters try on the golden slipper.
Right.
And they have terrible personalities. So he's probably thinking, well, at least Straggle Tag has a nice personality.
Yeah, that's a real blow to the Bad Sisters'
nice
egos
hair
there.
And sexy voice, or these two knuckleheads.
Normal human women.
Right.
Well, we get a series of balls that the prince is throwing 3 nights in a row. And the princess is wearing her different gowns that she also apparently snuck away with her or are under. It's a little confusing, but it doesn't need to be. It's a fairy tale.
Yeah.
But she wears her different dresses that she asked for the wedding to all these different balls, which impresses the prince. But then we inevitably get the next day, her in the disguise being like, hey, so how about that ball? Did you have a good time?
She's You've Got Mailing Him.
She is You've Got Mailing Him. She's Grinch Got Mailing Him is what we're deciding right now. I do love after one of the balls, I think it's the second one maybe, she sort of creeps up on him because there's this very funny cut to, there's a close-up of the prince just looking off like, where is this girl I love? And then it cuts to a wide shot and she's just standing there holding 2 buckets of water like, hey, how's it going? Because we hear her voice first. He's looking off and you hear, what's the matter? And it cuts out to the wide shot of her just looking as crazy as she's looked at this entire thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You can fully see that she's just a hairy Grinch in suspenders. She's kind of got Donkey Kong Bonanza outfit on. She's cosplaying as Donkey Kong.
There's too many layers
Bonanza.
to this reference, Onion. I was also going to mention that it could be like a Shrek. Because at the end when you're like, wait a minute, she's an ogre too.
Yes.
Well, yes, we do get the more traditional Cinderella part of this story where she goes to the last ball in her gold dress and leaves her shoe behind. And now we've pivoted to a second If This Fits, I'll Marry Them story, where he does the typical Prince and Cinderella thing of putting a call out to the kingdom of the prince will marry the one who fits in the golden slipper.
I like that the dog is like, yeah, the shoe thing. We all know the shoe thing.
So, of course, Straggle Tag goes up to try it on, and it fits. After, of course, Princess Bad Sister from Far Away.
Daughter of Nobody.
Daughter of Nobody. This is how we find out the king died. Oh, yeah, my parents died years ago. It's like, what? Okay. And she, again, says it fits, but her foot is stuck. And so the prince laughs it off and is like, really, you're not the one.
Those two are great, I got to say again. They were one of the better characters on any episode of The Storyteller, I think.
Yeah, and this is the moment we talked about where the prince gets to sort of own up to his responsibilities, I guess. Maybe it's a little undercut by it is the rules of the rules.
Right.
Where I think it's supposed to be all right, you're required to marry me and I look like this. Are you still going to marry me?
Yeah.
And he decides, yes, I will marry you. And so a dozen wild animals rush in and chew her clothing off to reveal her in her gold gown. It's, in any other context, a terrifying
That would have
moment.
been horrible, yeah.
I guess everyone else can see that she's not troubled by it, so...
Yeah.
It
wasn't
probably
scary
smells pretty bad still with all of those creatures being her best friends who crawl over all the time. But yeah, that is where it wraps up. And they fell in love. They are going to get married if the storyteller, who is tasked with this job for some reason, wakes them up.
I guess he lives in their castle and telling the story or something, right?
Yeah, it's like one of the earlier ones. I don't remember which one.
Yeah.
There's a storyteller, it might be Hans, where he is invited to the wedding and is very excited about being invited to the wedding. So we realize he's a part of this actual story.
Yeah, right.
And
he's like part of the court of the castle that Hans goes to or something like that.
Yeah, like so this is, I guess, similar to that in that he has a job in this kingdom to wake up the king and queen.
Yeah, I like the whimsy of that he inserts himself into it at the last minute.
But I did just think it was weird that the ring thing didn't come back around, and we don't find out anything about her kingdom other than her dad died.
That's fairy tales, baby.
I've honestly never thought about that before.
And I think, that's fairy tales is the answer to most of those problems.
Yeah,
maybe
right.
She and the prince march in and annex the kingdom and take it over for themselves.
You're like, we'll have two castles.
Yeah.
Why not? His and hers.
Well, yeah, this episode of the Jim Henson Hour wraps up with Jim showing off a trash bag puppet, which they are very good puppets. So
Pretty cool that they made them out of regular trash bags from the grocery store.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, we have obviously the example of Marjorie the trash heap, who is just a pile of trash without the bag, but is living, talking garbage. And we have this variation on that, which is the garbage bags, but Muppetized and given just sort of like hollow eyes and mouth, and yet are somehow not super creepy.
Good sculpting. Yeah.
Well, fellas, any last thoughts on this episode of the Jim Henson Hour?
It's the first one I've unabashedly had a good time watching from beginning to end. I didn't check and see how far I was and see that I was only 8 minutes in and then go, no. Which I usually do. I thought it was really good. And I do agree with you that if I had been the executive watching this one, or if I had watched this episode on TV, I would have been like, this is a pretty good show. I'm going to watch it again next week, only to find this was it, right?
This is after they decided to burn these episodes off. So this was a canceled television show. They're like, we'll air a few more of these. And this was the last one anyone would see in Jim's lifetime.
They just needed some more funner guest stars and tighter scripts for the Muppet television part. I think would have floated them through a little bit better.
But yet after this, they're going to go do the Ghost of Fafner Hall.
They were crashing out.
That's its own kind of thing. Well, I'm glad I was here for one that you both seem to have liked, because I do have such affection for the Jim Henson Hour. I think it would have been a little bit heartbreaking if you had been hating on it.
You could have convinced us, probably.
So much of that is wrapped up in the nostalgia of seeing the episodes that I did on TV and watching these two episodes over and over again as a kid, and just like, just appreciating everything that Jim Henson and his collaborators had kind of worked up to at this time, and this was kind of like the culmination of, look, this is everything we can do in one television series.
I think affection is an interesting word, because I wouldn't say that I don't have affection for the Jim Henson Hour.
Okay.
Just because it's so hard not to look at a Muppet and not feel affection.
Sure.
I think there have been second part, like I don't have affection maybe for Monster Maker, and a couple of the other like second halves. I don't hate the show in a way that I would hate another show. I think we're just in so deep that it's like, I gotta like this. It's a Jim Henson thing. Like,
Sure.
Obviously, there's
I don't dread more episodes. Like, when we
No.
watch them, I'm not like, oh God. Whereas sometimes Muppet Babies is in the camp of, oh,
Yeah.
we got
Are you
totally.
trying to watch every Muppet Babies episode?
Yeah.
For some
Wow,
reason.
okay.
we've watched the first 5
reason.
seasons so far.
We've come too far.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't dread it either. And I think it is actually kind of like just feeling sorry for the missed opportunity of what could have been.
Yeah.
And then
that's a
hearing
big
you
part
talk
of it.
about like what could a second season have been, is like, I watched this show with that sense of doom at the end of it in many different ways, and wonder like, what would happen if this episode had been earlier, or if this one had been cut a little bit different so it wasn't so confusing, or like, why the hell did somebody decide to put the first episode to be the last regularly broadcast
Yeah.
episode? Like, why did any of these decisions get made? There's so much meta stuff, but the show itself is like, all right, this is cute enough.
Yeah, the context in which we are watching it, I think, obviously skews things of, watching things in chronological order. Because, we had no familiarity with this series beforehand. We had heard, it was the culmination of a lot of Jim's ideas into one show. And I think we had built up a very different show in our heads when we would hear about it. And so by the time we got to it, we were like, this is a little different. We don't love it.
Yeah.
And having the context that we know we're near the end of Jim's life and career, I think paints it with a different brush.
Yeah.
And I think we've sometimes been a little sad watching the Jim Henson Hour, knowing that it's coming to an end, and feeling like Jim and Kermit by proxy are a little lonely on this show because they don't have a Frank. They kind of have.
I was just thinking that, just knowing that Frank Oz had decided he wasn't ever going to do a series again. So
and having Kermit also be surrounded by newbies as far as like characters, like some of his old friends, like Gonzo pops up occasionally, but for the most part, it just seems like Kermit hired some people to work here.
And you have the Miss Piggy in Hollywood thing where she's like clearly incredibly depressed, as is Fozzie, and like everybody just seems like they're having a hard time.
It just seems like there's been a bit of a falling out with the Muppets.
And at the same time, you have Jim on TV on interviews being like, oh yeah, that got canceled a couple months ago. And so like he's saying sad things about it, and we're watching it and being like, okay, this got canceled, and I can kind of understand why. Yeah, it's just like kind of a bummer time.
Yeah.
I'm just glad we have what we have of it. That we can. I do wish there had been more of it, but I'm glad that he got to make as much of it as he did.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to watch the rest of it. I think I'm happy that we're taking it as slow as we're taking it, because I think there is so much to say about the show. And we've rushed through things in the past, and I'm glad we're not rushing through this.
Yeah.
Well, before we get out of here, I want to check in with you guys and see if there was any non-Muppet things you enjoyed this week.
I'll mention a book, actually. I gave myself a Christmas present, which is, I think it's called The Essential Peanuts. It's the 75th anniversary of the Peanuts comic strip. It's a collection of Peanuts strips. They selected 75. I think 75 of like the most essential Peanuts strip. But then it's also filled with a bunch of other notable strips and the most entertaining strips. And the text of it, it's like a big coffee table book. The text of it is written by writer and animation historian Mark Evanier. And it's like a history of the strip. It's a history of comic strips. It's a biography of Charles Schulz. So it's just been really informative and entertaining to read this giant book of Peanuts.
That's cool. It looks beautiful.
The Essential
too.
Peanuts.
It's got the character guide in it and stuff too, it looks like.
Yeah, I was very impressed that they like there's a whole spread that's like every named character in Peanuts and when they debuted, and some of them I had never even heard of before.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've been kicking myself for years for not buying the individual Peanuts fanographics.
Oh yeah, the complete Peanuts
things as they came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta get back into it.
I like the early strips a lot where Snoopy's not talking yet and Charlie Brown is a little bit mischievous, kind of a prankster. I mean, the stuff that came later was brilliant, but I like the early weird stuff too.
Yeah. Well, my thing is, I'll just talk very briefly about it. Maybe I'll talk more about it on a live stream someday or something. But I went to see the Muppet Christmas Carol live reading in
Muppet
LA.
Christmas Carol
the
in LA.
Muppets Christmas Carol. Yeah, it was like one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. It was so good. All of it was standout, but the live music aspect of it is like when you're there, it's like so. The people who are playing the music are so talented, and it's so like it's extremely impressive that they're playing this music throughout this whole script thing, just like they are in the movie, and then they're live playing the songs and all that stuff. Just like the music stood out to me for some reason, but it was also like the script. So there was a couple cut things. They were using the longer versions of the songs from the soundtrack, which was interesting. They didn't add any of the songs from the soundtrack, but they did use the ones like the extra verse in the Marley and Marley song. And the people who play Statler and Waldorf are so good at being Statler and Waldorf. Like everybody was so good at being everything.
Well, yeah, Waldorf played by former Commitment guest Hal Lublin.
Yes, and he is so good. And Elise Willems was the Jesus for Us Mises, and she was Bunsen, and she did such a good freaking job as Bunsen.
There was a lot of we've been very lucky. There's a lot of ex-Commitment guests in that cast.
Yeah,
that did an amazing job. Erica Ishii as Rizzo the Rat.
She was hilarious as Rizzo.
Yeah.
The Rizzo and David Dasmalchian. He is gone. Like Rachel was like, that guy is Gonzo.
Yeah,
like,
his Gonzo voice is fantastic.
It was,
and it's not like a spot on Gonzo, but it feels like you're watching
and
Gonzo.
That's how everybody was. Like there were certain. This is something that I think about a lot with like recasting, where it's like, you don't have to be Luke Skywalker. You just have to like be Luke Skywalker. You know what I mean? Like that's part of how I feel about it. And there was a lot of people in this cast that were like, you're not Fozzie, but Paul F. Tompkins also is Fozzie, and he understands exactly what like Fozziewig's role in this is. And he was so much funnier than Fozzie in the play, like that part when they're like staring in each other's eyes and Fozzie's like talking in the background and trailing off. He was like coming up with stuff that was just like, you're so funny. But yeah, it was great. I would highly recommend if you can go.
You're also bearing the lead that Mr. Paul Williams was in attendance.
Oh God, totally. Paul Williams was, and he was sitting like a row behind me watching it, and then he got up on stage and he said something so interesting, which was like, Brian Henson was sort of like, why didn't you keep doing Muppet movie music? And it was because Paul Williams had a really bad substance abuse problem, and so this movie was like his first time that somebody, like, I guess to quote him, trusted him to do music for a movie again, because he had just turfed out completely. And he equated Scrooge's story to his struggle with addiction, Scrooge's addiction with like money and amassing power and stuff, and then his addiction problems. And I was like, it like made everything make so much sense in my head. Yeah, I don't know. It just was like a connection I never really made before. And then the person who sang When Love Is Gone as Belle was so good. I don't know who she was, but she was so good. And Paul Williams came up on stage and was like, you're going to be a star someday, and like gave her a big hug. And she just like broke down crying. But everybody behind him was crying as he was telling his story. Like, I think I made eye contact with Elise and she was like, and I was also crying. Yeah, it was great. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And they're doing Treasure Island. I'm pretty sure they teased it at least in the thing. So if you can see it, you should see it.
I'm trying to figure out how Matt Wilkie will shove the word script into Muppet Treasure Island.
Muppet. Wow, that's a hard
Scripture
one.
Island sounds like a different thing.
Muppet Treasure Script Land.
I mean,
yeah, that could be.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Matt, how about you?
Yeah, I watched a bunch of stuff, and I won't. I'll run through it quick because some of it I don't have a ton to say, so I'll just give sort of a quick like how I felt about it. But I watched a lot of things recently. I watched the F1 movie finally, which I talk about F1 enough on this podcast that I watched the movie. It's fine.
Is that the Brad Pitt one?
Yeah, I feel like as a person who watches a lot of F1, I knew too much to be like the target audience. Like there's so many like F1 101 kind of moments where you're like, oh boy, are you saying a lot more words than are necessary because the audience won't understand what's happening if they don't watch F1. But then also like half the movie is about how the team is trying to like break the rules to win races a little bit, which the things they are doing would get them like disqualified from an entire season, let alone one race in the actual F1. And I'm like, this is like an F1 sanctioned movie. And that's the most impressive thing about it is they recorded it like during actual races and things. So technically impressive, story-wise lacking. I also watched 2 different Godzilla movies and felt very different ways about them. I watched Shin Godzilla for the first time, and I watched Godzilla Kong, the New Empire for the first time.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And I'm so happy I watched them in the order I watched them, which was New Empire first and then Shin Godzilla, because I watched New Empire and I got very sad about the current state of the MonsterVerse. Because I've liked pretty much everything up until like Godzilla versus Kong in that universe.
Yeah.
And it feels, I don't
Godzilla versus Kong is like, okay, guys, you had some fun. Let's go back to Godzilla. And then New Empire is like, no, we're going to lean in on the Kong shit.
New Empire just got so silly that at a certain point I couldn't even be upset about it. It was just, and what I think about when I remember seeing it is it felt like there were a lot of shots where monsters would be doing things and then it would cut to a human describing what the monsters were doing just to make sure that we actually understood what was happening. Well,
and Sam and I have talked about this. I think when you saw this movie first time, we talked about this on this, that so much of it is set in Hollow Earth that there's no sense of scale.
Yeah.
And so these giant fighting monkeys who you have no idea how big they are compared to each other. Like they'll walk past a tree occasionally, but you're like, I don't know what Hollow Earth trees are like.
Maybe that's a tiny tree. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's so few moments in this where you feel the like actual size of these creatures that it just doesn't, it feels more like a Planet of the Apes movie than a Godzilla Kong movie.
That's the coolest thing to me about King of the Monsters is they feel so big when they're in Boston at the end. Like just like everything they do sends out huge shockwaves of destruction.
Well, that's the thing. It's like so many famous cities and landmarks in New Empire are destroyed. The Roman Colosseum, the pyramids, all this stuff. And like, I don't think once is anyone like, fuck, a lot of people just died.
At a certain point, it just there are no stakes at all left.
They're just very the problem is there's like 3 people who know what's going on.
Right.
What they know is going on is these evil monkeys in the Hollow Earth want to escape and take over the world. But like nobody on Earth knows this is happening.
Yeah.
And like all they see is Godzilla destroying Earth. And they're like, is anyone going to do anything about this? Nope, that's not this movie.
Yeah.
So there's no like sense of the actual destruction that's happening. And there's no like, the other thing that bothers me about like this current state of this universe is just how normal everything is to them.
Yeah.
That they're all like, oh yeah, no, we got a cool like flying spaceship thing. We'll take through Hollow Earth. It's got camouflage. Of course we've got a Kong extra hand that we built a year ago.
That was a problem in the first Godzilla Kong 2, I think was,
But like the 2014 Godzilla is so like grounded and I feel like well done. And even Skull Island is so good that I'm just
love Skull Island,
And Monarch. I love the show Monarch too. Yeah. And so I'm bummed that like this is where the movies are a little bit.
I do like Dan Stevens as King Kong's doctor.
Dan Stevens is the highlight.
I think that's pretty fun.
But yeah, quickly I'll say Shin Godzilla solves a lot of those problems for me. I love that movie. It's so funny because it's just about how ineffective governments are.
Right. I was not prepared. I had just heard that it was very good. I was not prepared for it to be a satire on the ineffectiveness of government bureaucracy. Which is you almost see more of like government committee meetings than you do of the monster.
1,000%.
Yeah,
because every time they're like Godzilla, like they'll have a moment where they're like, "We stopped him, everyone. Godzilla, we solved the problem. Quick, go to a press conference. Say we solved it. Godzilla's dead." He'll be like, "Hey, everyone, Godzilla's dead. We fixed it." And somebody runs in like, "Hey, he's alive and he's worse than ever." They're like,
"Time to have another meeting.
What do we do?"
It.
Yes. Yeah. Cut to a meeting. Cut to, I don't know what the hell to do. I'm just the prime minister. What should we do? Advise. Another press conference. We figured it out. And then guess what? You didn't.
Yeah.
And so I loved that. Trying to explain that, my wife came in like halfway through when I was watching the movie, and I was like, so this is a weird one.
Yeah,
it's
the
mostly
fact that they did that as an official Godzilla movie is so funny.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we got to let you know what we're doing next time. And of course, it's more Jim Henson Hour. And of course, unbelievably, somehow, we wrangled another co-owner of toughpigs.com because we are going to complete the Tough Pigs Triforce next time as we are joined by returning guest Jared Fairclough to discuss the secrets of the Muppets. So we need to thank Ryan for being here today. Ryan, where should people go if you want them to check out your stuff?
The Tough Pigs website is always a good place to find me. The podcast is moving right along, a Muppet movie podcast. I don't think there's anything to say about it that we didn't already. We're working our way through Muppets from Space. Yeah, we have our Tough Pigs Discord. It's a fun place to talk to fellow Muppet nerds. And if you want to read what I have to say about movies, I'm on Letterboxd at Movies Are Neat.
That feels like a good get of a
That is
username.
yeah.
Well, thank you for being here. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you
and I'm
for
glad
having me. This is
I
great.
feel like we're collecting the Tough Pigs staff one by one here.
Yeah,
so
good.
it's good to add another one to the roster.
And I'm collecting all their letterboxes too.
Oh,
That's
good,
true. Yeah. Well, we also got to thank our friend Tuna for making the music for this podcast and Cassie Wilson for singing our theme song. Don't forget to go to commitment.com for all commitment needs, be it episodes or merch or our contact form. You can get in touch with us there or at mail@commitment.com. Don't forget to rate and review this podcast wherever that's allowed. We appreciate it. And go follow us on social media at Commitment Pod on Instagram or at commitment.com on Blue Sky. And you can always follow me at Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And as always, keep believing.
Keep pretending.